The docking bay of Station Kepler 9 fell silent as Susan Chen stepped off the transport shuttle. At 5 feet 4 inches, with grease-stained coveralls and a tool belt slung low on her hips, she looked more like a mechanic than a pilot. The assembled crowd of alien dignitaries, race officials, and journalists began to murmur. "That's the human representative?" clicked Cathara, a Centauri pilot whose crystalline exoskeleton gleamed under the station's lights. Her mandibles chittered in what could only be described as laughter. "They send us a child with a wrench?" The Galactic Racing Federation's annual championship was the most prestigious event in known space. For 300 years, the Centauri had dominated, their quantum-fold engines and neural link piloting systems unmatched by any other species. When humanity had requested entry this year, it had been seen as little more than a publicity stunt. Evan Rodriguez, Susan's engineer and childhood friend, followed close behind, pushing a hovercart loaded with equipment. He caught the stares and whispers but kept his expression neutral. They'd expected this. "Captain Chen," announced Vexlar, the Morphean race commissioner, his gelatinous form rippling with barely concealed amusement. "We welcome you to the championship, though I must say, we're all quite curious about this vessel you intend to pilot. Our sensors indicate it's currently in Bay 73, a rather small ship, by our measurements." "Small but mighty," Susan replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She'd heard variations of this condescension for months during the qualification rounds. Cathara's laugh echoed across the bay. "Small and mighty? This should be entertaining. Tell me, human, have you ever exceeded .5 light speed?" "Once or twice," Susan said simply, adjusting her tool belt. The Centauri pilot's laughter intensified, joined now by several others. The championship course required sustained speeds of .95 light speed through an asteroid field, with precision maneuvers that tested both ship and pilot to their absolute limits. .5 was what cargo haulers achieved. "Perhaps you should watch from the observation deck," Cathara suggested, her tone dripping with false concern. "I would hate for you to embarrass your species. We Centauri have reflexes 17 times faster than humans. Our ships are bonded to our neural patterns. You cannot possibly compete." Susan exchanged a glance with Evan. He gave her a subtle nod. "Commissioner," Susan addressed Vexlar directly, "I'd like to request permission to run a systems check on my ship. The journey here was long, and I want to ensure everything's optimal." Of course," Vexlar rippled. "Though I should warn you, our technicians will need to inspect your engine systems. Federation regulations. I expected nothing less," Susan said. "In fact, I insist on it. Transparency is important." This caught the commissioner off guard. Most pilots were notoriously secretive about their engine specifications. "Well, excellent. I'll send my chief engineer immediately." An hour later, Bay 73 was crowded with curious onlookers. Susan's ship, the Persistence, sat in the center of the bay. It was indeed small, barely 40 meters long, with a hull that seemed cobbled together from mismatched alloys. It looked ancient, almost primitive, compared to the sleek, crystalline vessels of the Centauri or the living ships of the Morpheans. The Federation's chief engineer, a 6-armed hexapod named Trill, approached the ship with his scanning equipment. Cathara and several other pilots had followed, eager to see what ridiculous technology the humans had brought. "Shall we begin the inspection?" Trill asked, his multiple eyes blinking in sequence. "Please." Susan gestured toward the aft section. "The engine compartment is accessible through here." Evan worked the external controls, and the hull panels slid open with a hydraulic hiss. The assembled crowd pressed closer. For a moment, there was only confused silence. "What? What is that?" Trill's voice emerged as barely a whisper. Where they expected to see a quantum-fold drive or a plasma fusion reactor, there was instead something that defied immediate classification. The engine core pulsed with a strange, rhythmic energy, not the steady hum of conventional drives, but something that seemed almost organic in its variability. Multiple containment fields shimmered around a central core that appeared to bend space itself in impossible ways. Is that? Cathara's confident tone had vanished entirely. Is that a stable artificial singularity? Not quite, Susan said, stepping up beside the Zentarai pilot. It's a controlled micro-black hole, stabilized by a rotating electromagnetic field and fed by Hawking radiation converters. We call it a Penrose drive. The revelation sent shockwaves through the crowd. Creating a singularity was theoretically possible. Every advanced species knew that. But controlling one, keeping it stable, harnessing its rotational energy without being torn apart, that required understanding of physics and engineering that was thought to be centuries away. But the energy requirements alone, Trill stammered. The gravitational stresses. No material could withstand. We use a carbon nanotube lattice reinforced with a programmable matter framework, Evan interjected, unable to hide his pride. The entire hull flexes and adapts in real time to gravitational distortions. Susan and I developed it together over 5 years. Vexlar rippled forward, his gelatinous form practically vibrating. Do you understand what you've created? The power output of such a system would be, theoretically unlimited, Susan finished. Though we've capped it at 3.2, light speed for safety. Didn't want to accidentally tear a hole in space-time during a race. The number hung in the air like a thunderclap. 3.2 light speed. The fastest any species had ever achieved was 1.1, and that had destroyed the ship that attempted it. Cathara's mandibles hung open, motionless. Around them, the crowd had fallen into stunned silence. The championship course requires 0.95 light speed, the Zentarii pilot said quietly. You could complete it at a fraction of your capacity. That's the plan, Susan said with a genuine smile now. Though I'll admit, the hard part isn't the speed. It's controlling all that power precisely enough to navigate the asteroids. That's where human intuition comes in. See, our slower reflexes? They make us better at predictive analysis. We don't react, we anticipate. Evan chuckled. Also, Susan's been flying crop dusters through canyon runs since she was 12. This girl can thread a needle at Mach 5. The next day, the Persistence didn't just win the championship, it lapped the entire field twice. As Susan crossed the finish line with nearly a minute to spare, humanity announced plans to share the Penrose drive technology with the Galactic Federation. The aliens never laughed at human pilots again.